Yeah. Apparently, this is a thing. Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. I was so thankful when a viewer of the show sent this telly in. It's like, what is going on here? And to make matters even worse, this is not some reissue Telecaster. This is a vintage original. And to be exact, it's not actually a Telecaster yet. This is a Fender Nocaster. You can check out my broadcaster review and demo to learn a little bit more in-depth details of the initial coming of the Telecaster. But the first guitar to look like a Telecaster was called Esquire, and then the formal Telecaster came out as the Broadcaster, but that had to be changed due to a cease and desist, so they just cut off the word Broadcaster from the decal, and collectors now call that era of Tellies the Nocasters, before the Telecaster name came out. So this is indeed a vintage 1951 Nocaster that has been heavily modified in what the seller's calling a Payola style. And he's asking a whopping $75,000 plus $500 shipping. Okay, let's take a look here. We'll see if this makes sense or not. So the first thing that's going to catch your attention on this thing, hopefully, is 1, 2, 3 control layouts. What is going on there? Normally, a Telecaster style guitar just has this one right here. It's a master volume, master tone, and you have a 3-way toggle switch. But this one has that same thing duplicated 2 additional times. Like, won't this get in your way when trying to play this guitar? Like, seriously, where is your arm going to rest? Unless you have really, really skinny arms, you might be able to put it through there. But was this a child's guitar? No, in fact, it's the exact opposite. This is a professional's guitar. Want to know how professional this is? 3 output jacks, baby. All right, I promise I'll explain all this in a little bit, but let's just, get our first impressions of this guitar, because in case you missed it, we also have some funky pickup combinations here. Normally, a Telecaster style guitar, you've got a neck pickup that looks kind of like this one, and then you have a bridge pickup just like this. So we've had the addition of a P90 in the neck position, which I think is really cool on a Telecaster. And then this is like a very early Nashville style Tele where they added a single coil underneath. So really, at the end of the day, all they did was add a P90 in the neck and move the original neck pickup down here. Well, at least the original style one. This is not the original one. But if we turn this photo on its side, looking straight up and down, you can kind of tell that pickup's not exactly in the right place. It should be just a tad higher to be a true middle position, so that's even a little bit wonky. But what's kind of cool about that P90 is the seller's claiming it's a late 40s Gibson P90. I'm not quite sure how you would tell that, because dating Gibson P90s can be a little bit difficult. I mean, it's hard enough to know if you have a vintage 50s one, so 40s, it might come down to construction. Like, that doesn't look like a normal soap bar style. It's possible somebody took this off of a slide guitar or something. I'm not really all that familiar with Gibson's old lap steels, but it also could have came out of like an ES-150 or some other archtop guitar, because they were first introduced in 1946 within the Gibson lineup. That's pretty much everything on the body, except for, hey, did you notice these are flathead screws? That's just what they were doing back in this time. It's around 52 when those start to fade away on guitars. Or at least so I've heard. But as far as the neck, it doesn't even look like it's been played all that much as far as like finish being worn off of it. Maybe it's been refretted and relacquered. I didn't really read too much of that on the description. But our headstock looks surprisingly clean for its age. We've got a single string tree right here with a giant Fender logo, again being a Nocaster because there's nothing else here, so they just clipped that off in the olden days. And hey, it looks like we've got the old thermometer style case. So this does indeed appear to be a vintage original. I mean, we don't have any cavity shots to go off of to further ID it, but we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm sure if you were interested in this piece, he would gladly provide you some. But one more thing on the bridge here before we leave. We've got the 3 brass barrel saddles, right? But what is going on there? Was there a different pickup on here at one point in time? Something was mounted on there. It's either that or it's just a small thing that I'm not familiar with. But now let's talk a little bit more about why this guitar exists the way it does. This was not just some crazy guy. There was actually a function to this form. So my first thoughts were, okay, Maybe he wants to have a different setting for each pickup. Like he wants the volume at like 9 for this one and the tone rolled down to 5, and he never wants to touch that setting after that. But then you start thinking, he would literally have to unplug his guitar and plug it into there. That wouldn't make any sense. So then I was pretty stumped. I wanted to check out what the seller was saying. And here is the tale for that. He said this was modified in a Payola style to plug into 3 different amps at once. So that got me thinking, okay, so you can have like a deluxe reverb over here, a Marshall stack onto that one, and whatever else you want over here. Say a Hughes and Kettner amp. So you could essentially record the exact same guitar part with 3 different tones at the exact same time, so it's going to sound the same. So you could like blend them in a unique way, or if you want to change that later on in recording, it's like the modern day equivalent of today when people reamp a guitar signal. Now, I'm far from an expert on explaining things like this, but essentially nowadays you've got things like Kempers and whatnot that you can record a dry signal of your guitar and then take that dry signal and run it through different amps, simulated. So it's like you're actually playing that exact same thing live again. But this is, back in 1951. So where the whole Payola thing comes from is people were using this to get paid more than they were supposed to. So Payola in modern day practice means, you're bribing someone to use their influence or position to promote a particular product or interest. Like you can read all about how sometimes artists will pay radio stations to play their songs more often than they normally would in order to get higher in the rankings. In this case, if they played 1 solo on here, they could get paid for playing 3 of them because they're all slightly different in the tonalities that the pickups will do. So in many ways, this has like an outlaw vibe to it, like the smuggler tellies, which is completely different from this, but it's like an outlaw version of a session musician's guitar. Or at least just a really efficient way to record instruments. I mean, you gotta remember, this is the 50s at this time. They don't have all the modern day technologies that we have today. So according to the seller, most of these mods were done with 51 or older parts. So pretty much everything on here is vintage, except for this middle pickup. And I can say that because they actually have a very small video on their YouTube channel. This is how they recently purchased it at a guitar show. It didn't have strings or anything. That middle pickup was gone, so they've replaced that, I believe they said, with a Seymour Duncan. But the whole bridge was off on this thing. Like, I don't understand what this was. Okay, maybe I do. Those are the screws that hold the bridge into place. At first I thought, like, were they tying the strings around that like on our legendary Guitar video that only legends can own? No, those are just, okay, that all makes complete sense. So basically, they bought the guitar like this. They wanted to at least string it up, make sure it worked, have a functional guitar here. And they added that middle pickup in because somebody had already routed it out anyways. But what is nice about this video is you can really get a feel for how worn the frets are. Like after they cleaned all this up, the fretboard really didn't look that bad. I mean, just look at this photo. That looks clean. The frets actually look like they have decent life. But here, they're all corroded over, desperately needed cleaned. I don't know if they had to do any like level recrown work or anything like that, but you can definitely tell that that thing was worn in and had not been taken care of for the past couple of years. Unfortunately, we're still missing the knobs off of each of these. I think that'd be a nice touch to have them because then they would stick out like sore thumbs even more so. But hey, what a cool guitar. That's part of history. Okay, cool. I think we have a very good grasp on why this exists. It's kind of a monstrosity the first time you see it, but then when you understand the history behind it, it's like, okay, I can appreciate this guitar. I'm not as upset about it anymore. But now let's try to make sense of his price. $75,000 for a chewed up Nocaster and $500 shipping. Okay, let's first find out how much is a vintage Nocaster worth. You can get custom shop reissues for as much as a little under $5,000. Our reverb price guide is no help in this case. Here's a guy asking 60,000 pounds. That was fairly recently, so that's roughly 80,000 US. Gun Cotton Guitars has one listed here. That just says sold, but man, I want to take a second to look at this. That is a really nice looking example. Like it's clean, for the most part appears to be unmolested. It's got a little bit of player's wear, some natural relicking on the back. That is a nice looking Nocaster. Very nice. And here's one that Gary's Classic Guitars sold, I'm not sure when, but he was asking $58,000, and he usually prices his things at the top of the market. And that one had some significant wear on the neck, but everything else was looking all right. And the 2021 Vintage Price Guide puts the Nocasters between $43,000 and $56,000. So yeah, that seems to hold up for the most part here. Now the market has changed a lot since the publication of this price guide. So it's definitely seeming like this should probably be priced in what, the $30,000 to $40,000 range due to the modifications on it. I mean, if he could actually link this to a famous artist, then I think the whole game changes. Because, I mean, maybe I'm wrong here. Vintage Telecasters, not my thing. I don't follow the market on this stuff. But it has had 5 offers. I'm not sure if those are just time wasters offering him $1 saying lol. But it's got tons of watchers, mainly because it's all hacked up. Not necessarily that they're interested in buying it. But he was able to tell us a story about another one. Apparently Bruce Springsteen did something like this once. So I tried to find photos and videos of this. I didn't really get a really good look at it, but you can see on the Born to Run album cover here, the Tele that we're talking about. So this one had kind of like a unique pickguard system on here. I believe there were more pickups in the guitar at one point in time. Here's a tribute that somebody's made, but you can see it had 2 output jacks on it. So maybe he was just doing that with 2 pickups. And then I found on a forum group right here on greasylake.org that apparently there's a book that has some high resolution photos of this guitar. So you can see it right here. You can see the output jacks on his. It looks like that was later disconnected. And then maybe he covered it up with a regular pickguard. And here was a fan-made replica of his pickguard, you know, something similar to what it would look like. But this one looks like it was made out of leather. But you can see the design a bit better. Looks like a guy smoking a cigarette by a lamp outside. So like if this was Bruce's Tele, yeah, it would be worth crazy amounts of money. Like I think his has an Esquire neck and like a Telecaster body. So I guess we don't know the exact history of this one. It just seems to have been modified in a fairly similar but very different way. So it certainly seems like there's a huge market for a Fender Nocaster that's all original, but one that's all beat up and routed, $75,000, it doesn't make sense to me. I'm personally thinking that like $35,000 to $40,000 range would be more realistic. And even then, you have to find somebody who wants it with all these different things on here. Because you got to remember, if you actually want to play this, when this is technically a player's grade version, you're going to have to do something about this. Like just get a blank plate and remove those electronics, and then that would solve your issues. But it would certainly be a storytelling piece. So, troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed learning about this monstrosity of a beast today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.